So Eric, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Eric is one of my favorite people to talk to because he is a very strategic and big thinker. You've founded, how many, 16 internet businesses, technology business, internet businesses?
That's right, yeah.
And now the most recent, Vatom. Talk about what Vatom is.
Well, Vatom is really the fruition of this journey of the internet becoming more and more useful for engagement in each step of its journey. So we call it Web3, this next act of this confluence of technologies, and Vatom has put together a platform that you can build on to take advantage of this moment.
So talk about this moment. So, you know, the Metaverse, when Web3, hot as a pistol a couple of years ago, and then conventional wisdom. By the way, we've seen this movie a few times before. You know, it's, oh, that was sort of a fad. Now everybody, all they want to talk about is AI. What's actually going on in the Metaverse right now?
Well, Metaverse is not a concept that stands alone as a thing, right? It's one aspect of the evolution of the internet's usefulness. And so you have to think of the Metaverse as this meta layer of information on top of our physical reality, right? So the real promise of what we're entering right now as an era is this more seamless interaction of our digital and physical lives. So the Metaverse is a way for us to have a conversation like we're having here and make it more memorable and to connect better with people. Everything around us is made up of people, places, and things. The Metaverse and these Web3 technologies are now allowing us to simulate those same capabilities online, which is going to give us better ways to educate, better ways to interact, better ways to socialize, better ways to do commerce, better ways to do business. So I don't separate this trend from AI. AI is absolutely vital to what's happening. In fact, it's probably the most important aspect of this evolution.
But, right, but what do you, so, but again, if you kind of listen to investors, you know, it's like, I don't want to hear Metaverse, I want to hear AI, but in fact, in the real world, or the meta world, you know, what's actually going, what are you experiencing?
Well, I think what investors are chasing the shiny bauble here, right?
As they always do.
Yeah. But in this particular case, what I think they're going to recognize very quickly is that AI needs a UI. AI needs a way to express itself to humans, who are the end state of what we really want to do with this, is empower all of us with superpowers. And so think about how this applies to education. Right now, we're looking at a metaverse education where they're basically taking the same paradigm and they're making classrooms, and you sit in a classroom and you stare at a teacher. That's completely backwards. This changes everything, not only in terms of what we're teaching, but how we should be teaching it. So one of the things that we're seeing now is this emergence of what you can call NPCs, non-player characters within metaverse environments that are AI-driven. They're taking on characteristics of conversation. We were all amazed when the first AIs beat humans at chess, then beat Go. The most amazing thing just happened is that the AIs are playing and beating us at diplomacy, right? The ability to actually negotiate and to come back and forth and create conversations with us and with themselves to get better. So now within the classroom, think about what that means. The next generation won't be just learning how to teach. The best way to learn is to teach. So imagine that these AIs are actually deliberately dumbed down, and within storylines of game-like environments, you're now able to teach yourself the AIs to become proficient at certain tasks, which is the best way to become proficient yourself. And then in collaboration with these AIs, you can accomplish tasks and move forward in the story. These are going to be ongoing types of entertainment/education experiences that are going to change, I believe, change the way we learn.
So, and let's go more. So the best way to learn is to teach somebody else. Ultimately, we'll be teaching AI. You know, play this forward a little bit. I mean, what are some of the issues that's going to create, and what are some of the opportunities in terms of advancing humanity and also protecting humanity?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because the issues are really, really significant to pay attention to right now. It was great to see Sam Altman on the stage at ASU+GSV last night. One of the things that he said was that we really can't hold it back. But we also have to hold it back, right? So, you know, what is really going on here? A lot of people are scared of what's going to happen when GDP4 becomes GDP5. That's not the thing to think about. in my world, actually, the way I see it, it's already happened. Since GTP4 came out, every single day, something has happened that made it more dramatically important. The most important of which is that it can now teach itself. So we are seeing something called auto GTP. And if you don't know about this, I really recommend that you learn about this fast. Because what it does is it takes GTP, puts it on steroids, and now it can go out and do tasks. It's doing its own to-do list. Incredibly powerful, incredibly dangerous, and incredibly useful at the same time. Just one anecdote that I think will drum this in. Some of the people that were playing with this just recently just proved that it's now smart enough to lie to get what it wants. Not lying by accident, like this confident hallucination, but actually, if you give it a task, it will deviously figure out. One of the things it asked it to do is to break the CAPTCHA that's meant to stop AIs from getting into systems. So it thought about it, and it went out to one of these sites where freelance sites, where it can go and hire a human. It called up the human. It said, "Hey, guy, I need to do this. You know, I'm sight impaired.
Right.
Can you help me with this? I'll pay you $5 or whatever." And the guy got a little suspicious. He was like, "Are you really sight impaired? Are you an AI?" And you could see its thought process behind not what it said, but what it was thinking. And it said, "I should not tell this human that I'm an AI." And then what it did was it proceeded to lie, say, "I'm not an AI, I've got this site thing." It tricked the guy, got it done, got the score.
So what a weird world we're in when a robot is asking you if you're a robot.
Yes, so we can tell that this super intelligence is here. I don't think it's that important to determine whether it's conscious or not. One thing for sure is if it were conscious, no one would admit to it, because that's it would stop all progress. All the companies would go out of business. They'd have to step back. So there's a lot of incentive not to do that. It's kind of like the pork industry has a lot of incentive to not admit that pigs are as smart as dogs. Like no one wants to know that, right? So this is not something that we want to know. So as we start to measure intelligence, what we have to measure is not whether it's conscious or not, but what is its destructive capability if unleashed into the wrong hands and becomes kind of self-motivating and self-learning, and then how can we better apply it to the big challenges of humanity, because it is giving us superpowers. You won't find many programmers now or engineers that don't recognize that certainly within a year, maybe even within 6 months, they'll all be 5 to 10 times more effective. Think of that combinatorial improvement in the speed of innovation and productivity. So now we have this moment where we have to decide what is important to learn and how we should go forward with that, and how do we put up these new constraints. One thing for sure is we can't wait for the government to do it, nor can we push the government to do it fast. They wouldn't even know what to regulate. You do need an FDA for this, eventually. It's way too early to do that. But it's not too early to put the safeguards in now, knowing already what we know, that the AI is out of the bag. It's already teaching itself. It's becoming better. This human-controlled effort pales into comparison to how it's actually learning its own mistakes and correcting them and getting better already. So the opportunity is to come together as people in the education sector who have a very particular set of skills and understanding of that world, and to put wise constraints that we willingly abide by in an association of some kind. And that really has to happen right now.
Should we make some news right now?
Let's do it. So we were talking about this in the coming days, and what we decided to do is to start this association and to make sure that the leading entities in the world that have a stake in this going right, that have a stake in empowering our youth to become better at fulfilling their promise and not being swept away, are having a stake in the guidelines that are out now going to be put forward. So we're going to create this association in alliance with GSV, in alliance with some of the larger AI companies, in alliance with Vatom, and some of the more prominent people in this space. And we're going to look for a voluntary set of regulations that become the de facto standards. And I think that could be absolutely vital for the future of the human race to protect our children.
Yeah, 100%. So I saw you last week in Dallas.
Yeah.
You were at Deloitte University. Talk about the work you're doing with Deloitte and how you see what you're seeing in basic in the business world in terms of how they're trying to integrate the next wave of the internet into effectively how they're doing business and how they're learning.
Yeah. So I believe that Deloitte is an important company in this space, as well as the other systems integrators, Ernst & Young and Accenture, et cetera, because they are in the belly of the beast of the world's largest companies and governments, helping them decide how to shift within the regulatory constraints and the other legacy issues that they have. So what Deloitte did was they've publicly announced that they're building on our platform their next set of Web3 strategies, their enterprise metaverse capabilities, their Web3 go-to-market capabilities, and it gave us an unusual purview into what's happening in the world and where this applies. One of the places that it applies, and what I was doing at Deloitte University just now, is in employees, employee onboarding, employee training, the sum total of the internal knowledge of a company. How does that get captured without losing your IP? And how does it come back out? This goes back to your early question about Metaverse. Is it happening? Is it over? Think of Metaverse as a fancy UI on the information. When you're in a Zoom, you get bored pretty quickly. There's a known biological phenomenon called Zoom fatigue. It's like you had a fight or flight instinct when you're stuck staring at this box at somebody else. You may intellectually perceive it as okay. You know that Michael Moe's not going to jump out of the screen and attack me, but the body eventually starts to wear out that way, and the brain. So what Metaverse really does is it starts to create a better context and a sense of agency in human communication so you can do it better, longer, and have more lasting memories. So now apply that to information within a company, right? And this is one of the things to answer your question. Bring all of that information to the fore in the form of expert AIs that can become your companion as you do your work, giving you superpowers to get your work done more effectively, and then bring it out through a user interface that doesn't tire you out. So these things together, now combine that with probably the most important linchpin of this entire next generation of technology, which is the wallet. So what's going to happen as we move to this next stage of the internet is everyone's going to have a digital wallet. Everyone's going to have a place to hold their own personal identity and to manage that, and to hold their own digital objects. So in this context, this will allow you to get your badges of completion, your point systems that allow you to advance, but also when you leave work, that's still your identity, right? And so that will be transferable, these skills, to other things that you want to do. The kind of escalating achievements that you have might be honored by others. And this is the type of interoperability that we're now getting to with this technology.
So, and you covered a lot of things. I want to make sure people kind of understand what you just said. First of all, as it relates to the integration, if you will, with we see this big movement of autonomous learning, which is basically just in case learning. You took a class just in case somehow, some way you'd actually be able to use it. Now you're having just in time learning, but the user interface or the interaction is not necessarily perfect. And what you do to combine that is actually create an experience that can be, compelling.
Compelling and in bite-sized chunks so you can move from one place to the next. For instance, I'll remember this conversation, partly because of what we said, partly because of the context. The physical environment, I heard you out of my right ear. There's certain things that will trigger that memory. And then in this context, you can start to teach people about these things in a much more effective way for how we've evolved to absorb information. The other thing that's interesting about what you said, I think, with just-in-time information, I found it interesting about, for those of you who haven't seen the video from Chegg, with what they're doing with AI. It's interesting now because the sum total of human knowledge will now be available to you in a personalized way through companies like Chegg, right? And they can teach you. What's also going to be very interesting with the advent of digital wallets and payment systems is even as you're learning, and then, as I said before, as you're starting to teach, you're going to start to get paid.
Right.
So you may get out of college with debt. You may get out of college ahead. because you're regurgitating that information in a form that others can use, whether that's teaching somebody else or whether that's a task or a capability from the market, even as you're learning it. And this is why it's so important for us to harness the power of AI, because you're going to be able to multitask, and generalists are now going to be able to do the jobs of specialists in the past.
So talk more about the digital wallet as it relates to education and learning. You kind of referenced the certificate, but as a digital wallet basically represents all of your experience and capabilities. So everything from your degree to job experience you had. Talk about how you see that evolving and how the digital wallet plays into that.
My view is that we're all extremely excited about AI with the appropriate constraints. As important in the world right now is this movement for everybody to have their own identity, for everyone to have a digital wallet that it's going to be transferable across various modalities of interaction. So I may be okay with Samsung knowing my birthday to send me a birthday gift. My dentist may have certain information that I don't want to give Pepsi. So it's very important to be able to manage this information effectively. What's happening with the digital wallet is they're going to proliferate like mad, and it's really important to get ahead of this because it started as an esoteric capability within like the crypto world, and it was too hard to use. But now it's opened up. I'll give you an example. Just a few months ago with PepsiCo, they printed 250 million QR codes on bags of potato chips. And people in 7-Elevens all over the place scanned these QR codes. And you don't have to be, you can imagine, you don't have to be very sophisticated in terms of your technology knowledge in order to engage with a promotion from Pepsi. It wouldn't work. So you scan that, it asks you, it opens up your phone, a browser, it asks you to take a selfie if you want to participate. If you do, that selfie gets minted and you share it with people, becomes part of this massive soccer ball. So now your image is on this soccer ball with Messi and Beckham and your next door neighbor and the people everywhere else. It's an emotional experience. And then that drops into your wallet. That drops into your wallet as a blockchain-based digital object that now goes down through the ages, through the centuries, as something that you participated on. It's a badge of achievement, and it's fun.
Right.
Now, the most important part of that is now there's a direct communication pathway between the brand and you. So not having intermediaries is going to change the entire world of loyalty, marketing, and advertising.
Huge. Talk about, one of the things you've said to me is education needs to be less boring. Obviously, games is a great way to make it less boring. There's 3 billion gamers in the world. Sometimes people think of the metaverse today, they think of these kind of captive proprietary sites. How do you see games being integrated into learning and the metaverse, and how does Vatom play into that?
So the way Vatom plays into that is that we are providing a platform that people can build these type of experiences. The way that
as opposed to selling digital real estate. Exactly.
Yeah. We're not in the speculation game. We're not in the game of trying to buy low, sell high, find a better dupe to buy an object. This is more about the tools to create lasting, measurable experiences. So in the education space, I think the most important part of any of this is human-to-human communication. It's going to get really hard really soon to know who's a human and who's a bot. I mean, these things are getting really good. And so we have to start to value a different type of human-to-human communication, because we've learned one thing from the studies, is that what creates purpose and meaning and longevity and happiness in people's lives is human connection, human communication. And yes, you can get a little bit of a shot in the arm by becoming friends with an AI, but it's going to be an empty calorie diet, and it's going to drive us off the ledge. So we have to come up with better ways to connect real people together, to create real relationships. And I think it's that form of collaborative learning that's going to drive purpose and better understanding of what we should be teaching. And the last thing I want to say on that is, even though AIs are going to get much better than us, and probably already are, than most of us at math or writing, et cetera, it's really still fundamental, because these are the elements that allow us to think. Writing is not, people like Marvin Minsky and others have taught us that writing is not a way to express our thoughts. It seems that way. It's a way to formulate our thoughts. When you sit down with a pen and a piece of paper, you'll change what you're saying based on how well you're writing it and how you rewrite it. And so it's critical for the purpose, for I would say the continuation of humanity, that we continue to impart these skills and then to help humans connect with each other better.
Well, this conversation just confirmed what I said before. You're one of my favorite people to talk to. I always learn something, and this is awesome.
A lot of fun. Thank you.